In a time of war, when a king should be on the battlefield, one stays behind. And from the roof of his palace, just a single glance sets into motion this incredible story, a story of desire, deception, and ultimately a divine reckoning. This is the story of King David's fall.
So, picture this. The whole kingdom is at war. The army is out there, facing the enemy on the battlefield. But the king? He's back in the capital. And it's there that a fateful choice is about to be made.
It was springtime, the season when kings would typically lead their armies out to war, and David did send his commander, Joab, along with his officers and all of Israel. They marched out against the Ammonites, and they laid siege to their capital city, a place called Rabbah.
But David, the warrior king, the man famous for leading from the front, this time he stayed behind. While his entire nation was fighting, their king was resting in the comfort of his palace in Jerusalem. One evening, he gets up from his couch and decides to take a walk on the palace roof. And from this high vantage point, he has this incredible view of the whole city below him. And that's when his eyes fall upon a woman bathing. And she was, by all accounts, incredibly beautiful. Well, the king immediately sends a servant to find out who she is. The report comes back pretty quickly. Her name is Bathsheba. She's the daughter of Eliam, and she's the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Now, Uriah wasn't just some random soldier. He was one of David's own mighty men, his elite guard, a warrior known for being fiercely loyal to his king. So, David knows she's married. And not just married, but married to one of his most loyal soldiers. And still, he sends messengers to bring her to the palace. She came to him, and he slept with her. The text makes a point to mention that she had just purified herself from her monthly cycle, a detail that's about to become very, very important. And afterwards, she just returned to her home. Sometime later, she realizes she's conceived, so she sends a message back to David. It's short, direct, and it changes everything. Just 2 words: I am pregnant. Well, that news forces the king's hand. He has to act fast. He comes up with a plan to hide what he's done, a plan that hinges entirely on the honor of a good and loyal soldier.
David immediately sends a message to his general, Joab, who's out on the front lines. The message says, "Send Uriah the Hittite to me." The goal was pretty simple, really. If Uriah comes home and spends the night with his wife, then everyone will just assume the child is his. The king's sin would stay a secret.
So when Uriah arrives, David pretends to be interested in the war effort, asking him questions. Then he dismisses him, saying, "Go on, go down to your house and rest." He even sends a gift from the king's own table to follow him. But Uriah doesn't go home. Instead, he just sleeps right there at the palace entrance with all the other servants. When David hears about this, he's confused. He calls Uriah in. And the soldiers reply, it's just this powerful testament to his sense of honor. He says the Ark of the Covenant and all his comrades are camped out in open fields. How could he possibly go home to eat and drink and be with his wife? His sense of duty just wouldn't let him do it. So David tries again. The next day, he invites Uriah to eat and drink with him. He gets him drunk, hoping maybe the wine would wear down his resolve. But even completely intoxicated, Uriah's sense of duty was unshakable. That evening, he once again just went and slept among the king's servants. He did not go home. The honorable soldier had now twice ruined the king's plan. So David's attempt to cover his tracks is about to spiral into something much, much darker. In the morning, with his cover-up completely foiled, David sits down and writes a letter to his commander, Joab. And this letter, it contained a new and final solution to his problem. And then, in this act of just chilling irony, David gives the sealed letter to Uriah. So the loyal soldier on his way back to the war is now carrying his own death warrant delivered by the hand of the very king he serves so faithfully. The contents of the letter were brutally clear. David commanded Joab to place Uriah in the front line where the fighting is fiercest, then fall back so he may be killed. And Joab obeyed his king. During the siege, he sent Uriah to a place where he knew the enemy's best warriors were. The men of the city charged out to fight, and in the battle that followed, some of David's own officers were killed, and among them was Uriah the Hittite. Once Bathsheba's time of mourning for her husband was over, David brought her to his palace. She became his wife and eventually bore him a son. But the thing David had done,
It greatly displeased the Lord. And so, God sent the prophet Nathan to confront the king.
Nathan comes before David and he tells him a story. There were two men in a city, he says. One was rich, the other was poor. The rich man had huge flocks and herds, but the poor man, he had nothing except one little ewe lamb. It grew up with his children, it shared his food, drank from his cup, even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Then one day a traveler comes to visit the rich man, and the rich man, not wanting to take an animal from his own flocks, he took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for his guest. Hearing this, David's anger just explodes against the rich man. He's completely blind to the meaning of the parable. All he sees is this terrible injustice. He declares to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this deserves to die."
And then Nathan looks the king right in the eye, and he delivers the blow that cuts through every layer of power and denial. He says, "You are the man." The parable had worked. The king's crime was now completely exposed, and now he was about to hear his judgment, not from a story, but directly from God himself. Faced with the unvarnished truth, David's defenses just crumble. There are no excuses, no justifications. His confession is immediate, it's simple, and it's absolute. I have sinned against the Lord. The Lord has taken away your sin. You will not die, but there will be consequences, severe ones. And then the prophet pronounces the sentence. Because David used the sword of his enemies to murder Uriah, the sword would now never leave his own family. Because he acted in secret, his own wives would be taken from him in broad daylight for everyone to see. And the child born from the sin, would die. And just as Nathan had said, the Lord struck the child. The infant became gravely ill. David was overcome with grief, pleading with God, fasting, lying on the ground night after night, but the illness didn't let up. For 6 long days, the child suffered, and on the 7th day, he died. The first price of the king's sin had now been paid.
In the histories of the kings that came after him, David would always be remembered as a man who did what was right in the eyes of the Lord for his entire life, with one single, searing exception that would forever stain his legacy, the matter of Uriah the Hittite.